Welcome to another video podcast about the new Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists. The Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists online was released on July 1 and is the Seventh-day Adventist Church's first online reference work. The Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists features thousands of entries from around the world on varieties of topics, including articles on Adventist missionaries, evangelists, institutions, and beliefs. If you haven't checked the encyclopedia yet, please do so at encyclopedia.adventist.org and browse many articles and photographs and a growing collection of historical videos. I'm very happy to introduce today our guest, Dr. Ella Simmons. Dr. Ella Simmons is General Vice President of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. Dr. Simmons serves as consultant editor for the encyclopedia, and she represents the encyclopedia at the highest General Conference boards and committees and gives counsel and guidance on all important matters regarding the encyclopedia. Dr. Simmons, thank you very much for agreeing to this interview today.
Thank you, Dr. Santrac. And I express appreciation to Dr. Trim as well for my participation.
Yes, Dr. David Trim, the editor of the encyclopedia, is also with us during this video podcast. Dr. Simmons, I will ask you right now a question that I believe many of our viewers are eager to know about. Tell us why you believe the encyclopedia is an important church project.
Dr. Santrac, I am excited about this version, perhaps, of what we're calling the Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists. It is the inclusivity that excites me. I believe all stories will be told. ESDA, as we like to call it, will tell our individual and collective stories over time and across boundaries. History helps us to understand who we are. And I believe that this effort, this project, the outcome of this will help to anchor us in our root with our theology. And maybe I'm stretching a bit, but I believe with our theology, the encyclopedia will help to define who Seventh-day Adventists are in the modern world.
Yes.
It will bring life to the narrative of our journey. And I think through faces and the stories of our people are our church.
Yes, 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 indeed. Dr. Simmons, I can feel that you are very passionate about church history, about Adventist history. However, you are not a church historian. What do you think qualify you for your role in the Encyclopedia project?
I don't know about qualifying me, but at least igniting that fire in me. You're right. I am not a church or any other kind of historian properly. However, I believe that all people who tell the stories of history are to some degree a type of historian. And for the most part, mine is an oral culture, storytelling culture. And so I think that has been bred in me naturally. And so what I bring by way of qualifications, though not professional or academic, in three factors: my personal interest in history, biographies and organizational development. Even as a little girl, I just love biographies. And maybe secondly, my love for solving problems, solving puzzles. This work of ferreting out information is just that. And then perhaps maybe a third factor comes back to that introduction you gave me, Dr. Santrac, my responsibilities as a church leader to document our journey for posterity.
So I appreciate all those comments, Dr. Simmons. As the professional historian, I actually agree with you that Adventist history is there for whomever wants to tell it. Of course, we also want the highest standards of professionalism and accuracy, but those can be learned, those can be acquired, and I think the passion is what's so important. And I think as editor of the encyclopedia, for any new viewers, Dr. Santrac is, of course, the managing editor, but as the editor, I think what qualified you is exactly the passion and the desire to tell the story. And I just want to highlight that because, of course, there are many, many articles still waiting to be written, awaiting authors to embrace them. And though you are not trained as an historian, you are trained as an academic, as a scholar. And I want to make the point to anyone watching, if you have some kind of professional or academic knowledge, you are fit to write an article for the encyclopedia, so long as you also have the enthusiasm, the passion, then we can provide you with all the guides necessary. I think you would hopefully agree with that, Ella, that we provide plenty of support for an author.
Absolutely. I have been supported in ways that make it possible for me to do what is expected of those who contribute to the encyclopedia. Yes, the high standards and commitments to high standards, all of those should be natural, but the technical guidance and support that you give through the committee, through you as individuals, and through the editors, I would say would make it possible for anyone who has a story to tell that story effectively and accurately.
Thank you, thank you. And those things can be learned, can be taught, or can be self-taught. The passion for telling the story, that is something that can't be instilled in a workshop or an online seminar.
That's right.
And so if any of our viewers have that passion for telling the story, even if they're not academics or professional people, if they have the passion, then they may well also be able to write for the encyclopedia. And I just want to underscore how much we have appreciated your passion and that you have brought, and not only to writing, but also to representing the ESDA project at the highest councils of the church and giving very good advice to us. Your role has really been important.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Simmons, you wrote several articles for the encyclopedia, and two of them seem to be particularly relevant for the current times. I refer to the biographies of R.T. Hudson and Dr. Lottie Isbell Blake.
Yes.
I believe our viewers will find a very important insight in these articles. Would you tell us something more about these?
Well, of course, we don't have time for all that I would love to say about these two, but I think importantly, I would say both are church pioneers. Both sought biblical justice within the context of God's call on their lives and its concomitant service. I would say both dedicated their lives to improving conditions and opportunities for the downtrodden and the disenfranchised, especially people of color, or maybe those who have, by society standards, not been classified as the highest rung, on the highest rung of the ladder. They identified through personal experience with those who struggle to move beyond, and in both cases, beyond the bounds of slavery in the US, but whatever it is, worldwide. And I would say that both of these, and I really appreciate this about them, they never allowed, shall we say, any type of social struggle to eclipse their ministry and message. They saw them as one and the same, but through the eyes, through the heart, through the injunctions of Jesus. They saw their gospel missions to include their service to the communities, and whether cross international boundaries or just cross the street, both had a heart for service, and it showed throughout their lives.
This is really so relevant these days, and I love this about the encyclopedia articles, that they are not just scholarly, academic, historical articles, and for some people this can be quite intimidating, saying encyclopedia, that has to be something maybe even boring to some people. However, history is life. It's
Yes.
who we are as humanity, and we have so much to learn from history, and history is something that impacts our lives today. For example, I was really surprised to read on your article about Artie Hudson that his parents gave all except one of their children first and middle initials instead of contemporary names. Why? In protest of lingering influences of slavery.
Yes.
We see that the origins of his name almost influenced or predestined his ministry. So that was one detail that really, really stood out to me, how we would say ordinary people found ways to stand for justice and for what is right. And this is something that's inspiring for us today to continue the work of God that's expected of us.
Yes, absolutely. This was something that I did not know about Elder Hudson or his family before engaging in the project. And so I was delighted. You know, people who are totally committed to God find a way to address situations of life without compromising their standards or what they believe are God's standards for them. And so these parents felt this was within their reach, within their grasp, to make that statement. It was a statement. And of course, it is symbolic of how they live their lives, though, within God's will, and always stretching to do better and to be better. And if I may, I will pick up on something that you said. This showed just throughout R.T. Hudson's life. He was totally committed to the church and the message of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he was totally committed to living the message, not just preaching. Now here he was a great preacher, but his life spoke volumes and to such a higher level than even the words that he spoke. He lived the message in his community. And it is significant that he brought his community into the church appropriately. Yes, for Bible study, always to share the word of God, but he was able to reach the people where they were, to understand their need and to draw them, not as a hook, but as real ministry to them. And then the outgrowth, perhaps I should say, of this real ministry to where they were came their wanting to understand and to know better. I'm reminded of a popular Sunday evening program series that he ran consistently, I'm told, at the Ephesus Church there in Harlem, New York, when he pastored there. He brought in well-known speakers to give presentations on contemporary issues, but he always tied those contemporary issues to the Word of God, the message in God's Word for these last days. And on another occasion, he and some local pastors, you see, he didn't shy away from working with others. He didn't allow them to sway him, but he worked with them. They went out in advocacy for a small grocer, a grocery store owner, who was being forced out by more powerful and more influential individuals who wanted to plant a liquor store in the community. You know, they couldn't fight against one side or the other, but they could speak out against the liquor store coming to the community. He led, I don't want to call it more than it was, but he led an effort, shall I say, to improve the standards of health in his community by advocating for, yes, and protesting against ill treatment of those by at the Harlem Hospital. He and, again, a large group of other pastors were successful in getting improved facilities for healthcare and improved healthcare itself. So he understood how the message for these last days was real, for real people, and he understood how to apply it and to live it out.
very moving summary, and I hope many of our viewers will now want to go and read the article about R.T. Hudson. But you make the point about living out the message. You also, of course, wrote the biography of Dr. Lottie Isabel Blake.
Yes.
She's a woman and a medical doctor, so her path is clearly going to be fairly different in many ways from Hudson, who was her contemporary. Tell us about what impact she made.
Oh, this is just amazing. I had heard about her before studying, but I tell you, even all I had heard did not compare with some of the things I learned. I just developed a new perspective and respect for her. And you're absolutely right. Although they had some of the same elements of background and some of the same challenges of life, she, as a woman, and then an African-American woman, of course, lived in a totally different world. Absolutely, I agree with you, Dr. Trim. But I would start with along with, and I say it that way deliberately, along with making history by earning her physician's credentials. She went on to serve for 50 years as a physician. She passed medical examinations and earned licenses in 5 states and Panama, and practiced in all of them. She and her husband, and I think it's significant to share that she was a married woman, not for the whole time, but for much of her time. Her husband also, and I'd like to think under her influence, went on to earn his physician's credentials. He became a medical doctor as well. He was a pastor to begin, which was absolutely fine from the beginning. But they had a vision that they would engage in medical missionary work together. And they both wanted to be fully credentialed and fully prepared for that. And for example, they went to serve in Panama together under some rather harsh circumstances. But I want to focus on Dr. Blake, Dr. Lottie Blake, and her name, Charlotte. We always call her Lottie, even on some of her official documents in the church and in the public, refer to her as Lottie, but her name was Charlotte, and Lottie was the nickname for Charlotte. She was recognized, as I said, for 50 years of medical service, and also for finding a cure for what was called smoky city pneumonia, which was a serious respiratory condition brought on by smog or industrial smoke, as we would see it today. But somehow, through her struggles, she was committed to service. And I say this, these were some of her contributions, but hers was not a fairy tale story. Her life was quite difficult. And I won't give away this bit, but I hope one story that I have in the article will survive the editor's clipping. Dr. Blake, no, I shouldn't say, Charlotte, or Lottie at that time, before she became doctor officially, went in to take her first examination. She found herself as the only woman and the only person of color in the room. She was not met with welcoming arms, but she left as a colleague. And I'll leave the rest to those who would be interested to read.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Simmons. As I'm listening to all these inspiring stories you are sharing with us, I'm truly tempted to ask more questions, but I would like to leave it as it is for now and encourage our readers to go to the encyclopedia.adventist.org and read the articles written by you and many others and learn about these inspiring and truly faithful people. The way they manage to balance their ministry and personal life and family, it's really incredible. And you describe the many challenges Dr. Lottie faced in her ministry and hardships, and all of that inspires me to continue the work and pray to do even better in what God called me to do. And I hope and pray that our readers experience the same, and they get that passion for ministry. So Dr. Simmons, one perhaps last question, since our time is almost up. How do you think the encyclopedia will help the Adventist Church in its mission and reaching out all nations with the Adventist truth?
Thank you, Dr. Santrac. Though I've not written on this or even rehearsed this is something on which I have reflected throughout my participation. And maybe I could give you 2 or 3 points that would summarize how I feel about this. I think I truly and strongly believe that accurate history legitimizes people, places, and practices. Of course, it can do the opposite if it is perverted. But ESDA is documenting the contributions, accurately documenting the contributions of all nations for all nations. And I so appreciate that. I think another might be that ESDA's publications will help the church, and I speak generally, to better understand all people, to better relate to them in ministry and service. And then maybe finally, historical accounts will, of course, inspire, as we have said, inspire many to sacrifice and to serve as those who have gone before them have done. I know, especially after working on Dr. Lottie Blake's biography, even at this age and stage of life for me, I have just recommitted to doing all that God would have me do, even in the final stages of my life. This woman lived to be 100 and worked till she was 80.
Yes.
We look forward to having articles continue to come in from you then, Dr. Simmons, for another 30 years or so.
May God bless in that way.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Simmons, one more time, thank you very much for being our guest today. Thank you for your work on the encyclopedia and for being the encyclopedia's ambassador, if I can say. One more time, the Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists is available online at encyclopedia.adventist.org. Please read Dr. Simmons' articles and over 2,000 other articles, and check our videos and wonderful photographs that we have. Thank you very much for watching us, and see you at the next Encyclopedia podcast. God bless you.